Shortly after completing the Gen 1 Pokédex challenge, I began work on the next trio of games. Starting in Pokemon Crystal, my plan was to do a complete Livingdex in order to truly catch and catalog every single Pokemon in a given generation. For those who don't know the difference between the Pokédex challenge and the Livingdex one, the Livingdex challenge has us not only complete the Pokédex, but also catch and keep every single Pokemon and their evolution stages in the PC. So like the previous video, I'm going to quickly overview my experiences and any other hints or recommendations for those that are curious on trying out this challenge down the line. First off, I would really recommend using a spreadsheet or an online checklist in order to keep everything organized, as it is pretty easy to lose track of what Pokemon you've caught or need for the Livingdex. The Pokédex is not very helpful in keeping track of every single Pokemon you've acquired, seeing as the Dex counter would go up whenever a Pokemon would evolve, for example. The Dex number goes up, but the amount of captured Pokemon in that line stays the same. During the Livingdex challenge, there will be numerous times where you catch a Pokemon, and the Pokédex's counter will stay the same because of this. On the hardware side of things, mostly everything is the same as the first generation. I primarily use my modded GameCube with the Game Boy player alongside my analog pocket to complete this challenge. However, I did have to use my 3DS for a single Pokemon that I'll get to later. Game-wise, I still made use of the Analog Pocket's Open FPGA cores, the Easy Flash Jr., and the Link and Load card. However, around the time I did this challenge, I did notice there were some issues using the Game Boy Color cores on the Pocket, so I relied on the Easy Flash Jr. for my Gold and Silver save data. Also note that the Easy Flash Jr. does support RTC. Similar to what I did with the first generation, I completed Silver in my own free time and duplicated a save and renamed it to have it usable for Gold. Doing this saved me a lot of time, but I still had to make an extra save file in order to get the third final starter towards the end. Speaking of extra save files, in order to complete the entire Gen 2 Pokédex, you will need some Generation 1 games. So for a lot of these exclusive Gen 1 Pokemon, I just simply use my completed Pokemon Yellow save file. For future reference, you need at least one Gen 1 game for the 3 starters, the fossils, the legendary birds, Mew, and Mewtwo. Otherwise, having a Gen 1 game comes in handy when needing a fire, water, or thunderstone, since you can buy them easily at the Celadon department store. Also, a small note that I forgot to mention in the Gen 1 video, yes, I did use the teleport glitch in order to get a Mew in Gen 1, as there is no other way to get a Mew outside of needing a real-life time machine. I did manage to get that Mew into Pokemon Bank after legalizing it in PK Hacks, since, you know, it's a glitch. I also wanted to add on an extra detail that I missed in the previous video. I never got too far into the actual game side of things in Stadium 1 and 2, since I only remember playing the minigames whenever I popped the cart into my 64. Plus, relying on rental Pokemon ended up being a bit too difficult for childhood me, so yeah. In the Western release of Pokemon Stadium 1, you can actually upgrade the Game Boy Tower up to 2 times. By completing the Poke Cup or the Prime Cup, the tower will become the Dual Game Boy Tower. This would then allow the games to run at twice its normal speed. Doing both cups would then unlock the Dodrio Tower, which allows the games to be run at triple speed. In Pokemon Stadium 2, the same upgrades can be obtained by completing the Gym Leader Castle and or all the Stadium Cups in Round 1. Apparently, the Gen 1 games can even be ran at 4 times the speed in Stadium 2. Thankfully, Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal are pretty large upgrades on the quality of life side of things. And the largest upgrade this game got over the previous game, and even future titles, is the ability to entirely skip the catching tutorial. The box system also got a pretty big upgrade and is a lot more manageable without needing the box system that is available in Stadium 1 and 2. Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal are infamous for introducing a real-time clock system for the first time in the series, having 4 AM to 10 AM be morning, 10 AM to 6 PM be daytime, and 6 PM to 4 AM being nighttime. While having the color palettes change during these times are an excellent touch, the time does affect what Pokemon will appear. So if you are only to play during a certain time, some Pokemon may never appear for the player. In my time playing Crystal, I was essentially out of luck trying to catch early morning Pokemon like Ladybug and Ledian. Thankfully, a good majority of Pokemon are available in the daytime, and there is a way to reset the clock via a button combo and by using Black Shark's GSC clock password generator. Using the player's name, trainer ID number, and the current amount of money, this will generate a passcode that will then prompt the player to set a time on the next boot up of the game. Speaking of generators, another feature introduced in Generation 2 was the ability to headbutt trees using a Pokemon. The Pokemon encounters will depend, however, on the trainer's ID. So even if a player is on the correct route, for example, Heracross, they may never see their intended Pokemon because their trainer ID does not allow that particular Pokemon to even exist on that tree. Inputting their ID and their route in T-Shadow Knight's Headbutt Calculator will generate a map where the player can see their rare and normal encounters. All the player would have to do then is see where the icons line up with any headbuttable trees and try their luck. Alongside timed events are also daily and weekly ones. The important events one would need for this challenge is the Friday Lapras in Union Cave's basement, the bug catching contest on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, where you could get a repeatable Sunstone by getting in first place, and the Hairdresser Brothers that appear every day except for Monday. The Hairdresser Brothers are notable for their ability to raise a Pokemon's friendship level. While introduced in a soft format in Yellow with your partner Pikachu, friendship is much more important for certain Pokemon in Generation 2, as it becomes an evolution requirement for a handful of them. The younger brother is able to increase the friendship of a single Pokemon by 10 points while the older brother will do about half. However, this is only applicable if the text says that the Pokemon looks delighted. You can't save before using the salon in order to get this particular text box, so don't worry if you get the description of happy or just a little happier. Outside of using a brother's, leveling up is the next best way to increase friendship quickly. Although don't do what I did and trade out a friendship-reliant Pokemon out to another game for grinding, as that will reset their friendship level when they are traded back. I believe this was changed in Generation 6, but I did end up wasting a whole ton of time trying to get my Eevee to evolve into an Umbreon because of me trading it prematurely. If you're not too sure how close you are with a particular Pokemon, there is a friendship checker also in Goldenrod. Near the department store, the lady there will comment on the first Pokemon in the party. If she says that it looks really happy, it must love you a lot. That means that you are really close to having that evolution requirement. There's also no harm in saving and checking with a rare candy on occasion. Held items were also introduced in Generation 2, and with that came with a Thief TM. Having at least one Pokemon with Thief learned is pretty crucial for getting certain evolutions. Even if we're given the items for free during the normal playthrough, we do need at least one extra to get our missing evolutions. Also, fun fact, any Pokemon traded in from Generation 1 using the time machine will be given a set item. Most Pokemon get berries or useless items in the case of the Machop line getting a brick, but Snorlax will be holding leftovers after time traveling. Time travel can also be done in mass using the transfer pack in Stadium 2. Thief in Gen 2 will inflict a small amount of damage while also having a 99.6% chance of stealing a Pokemon's held item. The relevant Pokemon with evolution items are Magnemite for Metal Coat, Slowpoke and Poliwhirl for King's Rock, Horsey, Seadra, Dratini, and Dragonair for a Dragon Scale, and Clefairy for a Moonstone. All these drops are fairly rare, being at a 2% drop chance, so be prepared for looking for quite some time for some of these items. You don't need to feint a Pokemon in order to successfully steal, just ensure that the Thief Pokemon is not holding anything. Use Thief the first turn and then run away. For those that want to go that extra mile and make grinding much easier, there's always getting a lucky egg from a Chansey. However, with them being extremely rare in Kanto, being a 1% in Route 13, 14, and 15 with a 2% drop chance, it's going to feel like getting a shiny is much more probable than getting a lucky egg. As like with Gen 1, there isn't really a great spot to grind for experience. So what I did was just transfer over my team or any Pokemon that needed to get experience and use Mount Silver and Victory Road to get that set experience. This was kind of how I found out that the trading resets friendship level the hard way. On the topic of shinies, Generation 2 can be an alright game to hunt for them. While not holding a candle to shiny hunting in modern titles, the odd egg that is given to the player has an increased chance of hatching a shiny, a 1 in 8 chance for the odd egg. I even got a shiny Elekid without realizing at first, because I mean, how are you supposed to know without, you know? There's even a notable glitch that one can do using the time machine by teaching the shiny red Gyarados from the Lake of Rage Mimic and trading it to a Gen 1 game and getting into an encounter with a wild Ditto and having that Gyarados do Mimic the first turn with Ditto using Transform twice and then catching said Ditto, that captured Ditto will come back shiny. Using this shiny Ditto in conjunction with the speed increase with the upgraded Pokemon Towers in Stadium 2 should make getting shinies a lot easier, although make note of this handy chart taken from the Nose Club website on their Shiny Egg Guide. Similar to the regular Pokédex challenge that I did in Generation 1, mostly everything is straightforward and simple. The worst thing one would experience is getting bad luck and not getting a desired encounter in a route for an extended period of time. For example, using their Repel trick in hopes of getting that 2% Pupitar on Mount Silver and not being successful for nearly an hour. Probably the hardest encounter in Crystal is the roaming legendaries that will appear after a cutscene on the Burnt Tower. Suicune is thankfully a static encounter, but Raikou and Entei are real annoyances by contrast. There are two main strategies that I would recommend in preparation for catching these two roaming critters. The first involves saving the Master Balls in Gold and Silver and giving those to Crystal via a Pokemon trade or just getting lucky twice in the radio lottery and getting the top prize. Otherwise, there is a guide made by Chamale that recommends catching a Jinx in the Ice Path and preparing that Pokemon to be level 40, teaching it Lovely Kiss and Mean Look, and making it fast enough to outspeed the roamers by giving it 10 Carbos. Gengar, Haunter, and Crobat are also good contenders once they have more than 110 speed. With either strategy, the important thing is to have a lot of max repels, a level 40 Pokemon as your lead, and a Pokemon that can fly, and a lot of patience. What I did afterwards was fly to Ecruteak, head downwards onto Route 37, check there with a repel active, and then head towards 36 and finally Route 35. Oh, you also need a Pokemon with Cut, I forgot to mention that. From there, if they don't appear, fly back to Ecruteak and try again. With enough time, you should be able to encounter both roamers, hopefully. Even if you don't have the Master Balls to catch them immediately, if they manage to get away, you will get a tracker on the Pokédex. However, this tracker is better used to predict where the roamers are going next, since flying to their location will simply have them move away. Using the previous method of flying to Ecruteak, going down the 3 routes will eventually have you encounter another roamer with enough patience. Thankfully, the other legendaries are pretty easy, as once you have the 3 roamers, the player gets a Rainbow Wing, which makes Ho available, and Lugia can be caught after getting the Silver Wing from an old man in Purity City. That's in the Kanto postgame. Returning to a previous point earlier in the video when I said I needed my 3DS for a single Pokemon, I had gotten my original DS and new 3DS XL modded with a capture card in preparation for generations 4 through 7. However, I had to bring out my 3DS early, as there is one Pokemon that can only be obtained legit through an event that was brought back in the Virtual Console release of Crystal. Like Mew in 1st Gen, there is a glitchy manner of getting Celebi, but I didn't exactly feel confident in my ability to pull off the trick. Plus, I didn't want to deal with PK hacks in this instance to make that particular Celebi legit, and so I found it easier just to extract the save from this link in low cart and move that save file to my 3DS using Homebrew. And after doing some reading on how to get the event with Kurt and the GS Ball to activate, I had finally gotten face to face with the final Pokemon that would have permanently eluded me had it not been for Homebrew and this event coming back in the Virtual Console release of Pokemon Crystal. I mean, of course, I could have hacked it in, but where's the fun in that? But you know what else is fun? Spending money. Or at least finding out how much money I spent by doing the 2nd gen of Pokemon.